If you're wondering what a platform like TikTok has anything to do with your app, well, I'm so glad you asked. You see, TikTok is an app worth billions of dollars. That's billions with a B. And there's one specific thing that has led to TikTok's extreme success. And the cool part is you can take that and apply it to your own app even if your app has nothing to do with social media or short form videos. So that's what we're gonna talk about in today's video. Now stick around until the end because we're also gonna go through 5 specific ways you can apply TikTok success to your own app. Hey, it's Kristen over at Coaching No Code Apps. We help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so they can launch their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding. And if that's what you're doing, then subscribe to this channel for new videos to help you every single week. Have you ever settled in for a nice, cozy Netflix and chill session, only to spend the first hour of that session figuring out what to watch? Well, that, my friend, is called friction. In other words, it's a period of time where you, the user, are not actually achieving the goal of the app. Now, TikTok is a platform that shows short-form video to its users endlessly. And TikTok has figured out a way with its algorithm to reduce that friction. In other words, users don't have to really figure out what to watch. TikTok just does a really good job figuring that out for them. Now, like I said, your app doesn't have to have anything to do with short form video or social media. We're not really talking about algorithms in this video, but what TikTok has achieved is the ability to remove the need for users to think while they're using the app. And that is huge. Thinking is friction, right? Anytime a user comes onto an app, they have a goal in mind. Even if that goal isn't top of mind, maybe it's a little bit more subconscious, right? Like when they're on social media, but maybe it is front and center. Maybe we're talking about project management apps or even job boards. When a user comes onto an app, they have a goal. Anytime they have to stop and think while they are using the app to work their way toward that goal, that is friction. The thinking is friction. We want to remove that as much as we possibly can. Now, that doesn't mean that we want users to be mindless when they're on our apps. It just means we want to make it so that users don't ever have to stop and think what to do next or where to go, right? We want to remove all of that friction. The more you can do this, the more streamlined your app is. And therefore, the easier it is to use, the easier it is to stick around on long term, and the more successful it's going to be overall. So the question is, if your app doesn't have anything to do with algorithms like TikTok does, how can you reduce the need for that thinking and ultimately streamline your app? Well, we're going to talk through 5 specific ways. And keep in mind, these are 5 dead simple things that you can apply to your app right now, no matter what you're building. Number 1, consistency in design. We're talking about everything from navigational flows to the colors you're using in your app. Make your design consistent. So from one page to the next or one group to the next, everything should function and look the same. For example, let's say you have different buttons on your pages. Well, every single button that is a primary call to action should be the same color. If a user hovers over it, well, it should have the same effect. If a user clicks on it, the same thing should happen. We don't want to mix these things up. For example, maybe you hover over one button and a box shadow appears behind it versus you hovering over another button and the text inside the button underlines, right? We don't want things like that. We want consistency in design, because the more consistent your designs are, the easier it's going to be for a user to learn your app, and therefore the more intuitive it's going to become for them. And obviously, the more intuitive it is, the less they have to think about what they're doing when they're using the app. Number 2, less is more. It's really common for people to think, what more can I add to my app to make it better for the user? Really, you should be thinking, what are the things that are absolutely critical and must be in the app, and what else can I remove? Less is actually more, because the more that's in your app, the more your user has to think about where to go and what they want to do. So you really only want the absolute most critical functions in your app and at every step of the user journey. Look at your menus, look at your options, look at your functions and your features, look at the colors that you're using and the designs, look at everything involved in your app and think about what you can remove, where by doing so, the result for the user is still going to be the same. Then remove those things. By the way, if you're finding this video helpful, we have an extended free deep dive workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop that will walk you through the steps toward becoming a successful app entrepreneur, from scoping strategy to learning which no-code tools are right for you, to learning how to use those no-code tools, and so much in between. Head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop to sign up for that and get more help. Number 3, visual hierarchy. You want to help users navigate your app in more subconscious ways. So when you think about reading a book, for example, you have a table of contents and you have chapter titles or chapter numbers and then body text below that. Right? That helps you navigate through a book without actually having to think about it. Well, you want to think about your app in the exact same way. So you have headings on different pages, for example, and then subheadings, and then body text. The reality is attention is very finite these days. So if a user has to come onto your app and search through the pages to figure out what they need to do, then you are not doing your job. You want to think about creating a hierarchy on your page where the most important things are the most prominent and obvious things, and the least important things are the least prominent and obvious. So let's take buttons, for example. You're always going to have a primary call to action within your app. And again, going back to our design rule, this should be consistent. The primary call to action should always look the same, but you're going to have secondary calls to action as well. So let's take the example of a landing page, something really simple. Well, your primary call to action is going to be for a user to sign up to use your app. Sign up is going to be the most prominent call to action on that page. But maybe you have some users who need to learn more before they're ready to sign up. Well, you might have a secondary call to action that says learn more. Well, that secondary call to action should follow a hierarchy. It shouldn't look the same as the primary call to action. Maybe your primary call to action is a bright green. Maybe the secondary call to action is a lighter, more transparent green, right? So there's a hierarchy here. We know what the most important one is, and then we know what the secondary one is. Number 4, use the familiarity principle. Going back to short form video, think of Snapchat, for example. You saw short form video on Snapchat, and then we saw it on Instagram, we see it on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, right? Short form video now is everywhere, and it all looks pretty much the same in terms of the format and the function, right? And adding to that, not all of these platforms came out with this short form video format all at the same time. Instead, one platform was using it and users became familiar with it, and therefore it became intuitive, and then another platform started using it because it was already intuitive for users, and then another and another, and so on. Use that principle within your own app. And number 5, design your app based on goals. So going back to the very beginning of this conversation, a user is coming onto your app because they want to achieve a specific goal. Your app should be designed with that in mind. So think of the specific goal that you have, and then that's going to lead you to deciding on which features need to be included in your app. Each of those features should help guide a user to that overarching goal. Now, within each of those features, you should have one specific goal involved. And again, once those goals are achieved, then the user will have achieved the ultimate goal of the app. When you design your app that way, it makes it more intuitive for users because they already know the ultimate goal of the app. And therefore, if every individual feature has its own goal, then they're going to intuitively be able to go through those features, use those features, and ultimately use the app as a whole without having to think too much. Now, of course, there are tons of other design principles that you can apply to your app, but if we think back to TikTok's success, it's not really because of their algorithm. It's because their algorithm reduces the need for users to have to think and search while on their app. And if you can keep that principle in mind and apply it to your own app at every step in your development, then you'll create an intuitive platform that users want to use and will stick around on long term. All right, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.